I'm going to complete a word problem with you, and then you're going to complete a couple of your own in your notebook. Remember, as you watch this video, to take notes. Also, you can pause as needed. So if I go too fast through any of the steps, you can pause or rewind and rewatch that step. Scott had some eggs. He sold 5/8 of them. If he sold 300 eggs, how many eggs did he have at first? I'm going to begin by writing my sentence on the bottom. Scott had blank eggs at first. And then I'm going to read the information in the word problem one line at a time, drawing my bar as I go. So I'm going to draw the full bar and read the first line. Scott had some eggs. It doesn't tell me the total number of Scott's eggs. That's actually what we want to find. We're asked how many eggs did he have at first. So if it just says he has some eggs and we don't know the total amount, we're going to put a question mark for that piece of information. So I draw a bracket above the whole bar and put a question mark for some eggs. Then I'm going to look at the next line of information. It says he sold 5/8 of them. 5/8 of them, meaning 5/8 of the eggs. So that means that I want to look at the whole bar and I want to be able to show 5/8. Since the denominator is 8, it means that I want to break this bar up into 8 parts, and I want 5 of them to represent how many were sold. So I'm going to split the bar in 8 parts, and I've shaded 5 to show that those were sold, or you can put an S in each of those 5 units. Then I'm going to look at the next piece of information. If he sold 300 eggs, how many eggs did he have at first? Well, how many he had at first means how many did he have in all. So I already have the question mark on that piece of information. But it says if he sold 300 eggs. Well, we know that 5 out of 8 of these boxes, or 5/8 of the eggs, were sold. And they're telling us that if he sold 300 eggs, how many does that mean he had at the start? So we're going to put a bracket underneath those 5 units and label them 300. In class, we learned 2 methods for solving fraction bar models. Method 1 was the unit method, where you would find just 1 unit, and method 2 was to find a fraction of a whole. Now, notice that for method 2, to find a fraction of a whole, you have to know the whole. In this case, do we know the whole? No, we don't. So since we don't know the whole, we actually cannot solve using method 2. This is an example where you must use method 1. Finding 1 unit to start and then going from there. So we have to use the unit method for this word problem. We know that 5 units are equal to 300. So to find just 1 unit, I would want to divide 300 divided by 5. Now remember, we can solve this mentally. Let's take a look at those first 2 digits. Can 30 be divided by 5 equally? It can. 30 divided by 5 is 6, but remember it wasn't just 30, it's 30 tens. So we've got to add the 0 onto the number. So 300 divided by 5 equals 60, which means that every single unit in this bar is equal to 60. You don't have to write all those 60s in necessarily on your bar. I'm just showing you every single unit is 60 eggs. Now I can find the total amount of eggs that he had at first because I know that each unit represents 60 eggs, and I know that there are a total of 8 units. So I can find all 8 units by multiplying 60 times 8. And once again, we can use mental math strategy to solve this problem. I know that 6 times 8 is 48, and I know that it wasn't just 6, it was 6 tens, so I'll add my 0 in. That means that he had 480 eggs at first. I can now cross out the question mark, write the number as I did, and put the number in my sentence. Scott had 480 eggs at first. The main thing I want you to see here with this word problem is that since you don't know the whole amount, you don't know the total, you were not able to use method 2, which is finding a fraction of a whole, because you didn't know what the whole was. You had to solve this word problem using the unit method. Mary had $350. She spent 4/7 of it. How much money did she have left? At the bottom, make sure to start by writing your sentence. Mary had blank dollars left. Make sure to include the $sign. Don't forget that very important piece of information. And I want you to draw this bar model out on your own. You'll submit your answer and watch me solve it and make corrections as you go once you're done. Make sure to use method 2 to solve this problem, not method 1. Remember, you have examples in your notebook if you need to refer to it for help. Submit your answer when you're ready to go over it. The first line of information tells me that Mary had $350, which means that that's how much Mary has in all. So I'm going to label the whole bar $350. Next, I'm told that she spent 4/7 of it. So in order to show that she spent 4 out of 7 parts, I have to split this bar up into 7 parts first. I'll try my best to make 7 equal units. I know that she spent 4/7 of her money, so she spent 4 out of the 7 units. And that means that the next 3 units are what was left over, and that's what we want to find. How much money did she have left? I can solve using method 2, which is finding a fraction of a whole. I want to know 3 out of 7 units, the value of 3/7 of the total amount of her money, which is $350. Remember, technically there's a 1 in the denominator of all whole numbers, so you can add that in if it helps you to cross cancel. I'm now going to look to see if I can cross cancel, which I can because 7 goes into 35 5 times, but it was not just 35, it was 35 tens. So it becomes 50 and this becomes 1. Now I'm going to multiply my numerators. 3 times 50 is 150, and we were talking about dollars, and that is how much she has left over. I found 3/7 of the whole amount. I cross-canceled, I multiplied my numerators, and I got that $150 is left over. This is the last problem for you to try this evening. Finbar had $50. He spent 1/5 of it on a book and 1/10 on a flashlight. How much money did he have left? Begin again by writing your sentence on the bottom. Finbar had blank dollars left. And then I want you to solve this on your own and submit your answer when you're ready. A quick tip in case you are stuck on how to show this all in one bar, use your notebook because the third problem that we did together in class today looks very, very similar. The very first line of information in this word problem tells me that Finbar had $50, which is how much Finbar has in all. Based on the second line of information, I know that he spent 1/5 of it on a book and 1/10 on a flashlight. Now, if I were to split this bar up into 5 parts, I would label one of them book. But then it would be hard to also show 1/10 that was spent on a flashlight. So I actually want to create an equivalent fraction here. I want to show what 1/5 would equal if it were out of 10 instead. Oh, that's supposed to be an equal sign. So to get from 5 to 10, I would multiply by 2, which means I'm going to do the same thing in my numerator to create an equivalent fraction. So it means that 2/10 was spent on a book. And 1/10 we know was spent on a flashlight. Now I can show both of these on one bar by splitting the bar up into 10 parts. I can label 2 of them book and 1 of them flashlight. Now I can label every single remaining unit L because that is what is left over. I want to know how much money did he have left, so that's going to be my question mark. And again, I can solve using method 2, which is finding a fraction of a whole. In this case, I want to know 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 units out of 10. I want to know what 7/10 of the whole amount, $50 equals. I can cross cancel by dividing by 10 and multiply my numerators, and that means that there were $35 left over. Remember, you want to take a look at this and make sure that it does seem like a reasonable answer. If your answer was like 65, an alarm should go off because if your total is 50, that wouldn't make any sense, that there would be a bigger part than the whole. So always make sure to look it over and make sure that it seems reasonable.